The sky above the Imperial City was a canvas of fire and ash. Streaks of orange and purple cut across the clouds as alien warships hovered, massive and silent except for the low hum of their engines. Smoke rose from shattered towers, and the ground trembled beneath the force of energy blasts striking the city. The air was thick with heat and the scent of burning metal. It was a place where hope seemed almost impossible to find. The Empress's warriors were fleeing. Elite, trained, and proud, they should have been unshakable. But now, panic burned in their eyes, and hesitation gripped their movements. Their polished armor, once a symbol of invincibility, reflected the firelight in distorted shards as they scrambled over rubble, leaving paths of destruction behind. Some fell, not from wounds but from fear, and others tripped over debris, their pride turning against them. And yet, one figure did not run. Hale, a human soldier, barely 20 summers old, stood firm in the main plaza, his feet rooted in the cracked stone as though the ground itself supported his defiance. His eyes were fixed on the Empress, who crouched atop a collapsed bridge some distance away, her silk robe singed and torn, yet her posture held the dignity of command. Around her, the alien forces advanced with methodical precision. Their bodies were twisted and grotesque, limbs thicker than tree trunks, eyes glowing a cold yellow that seemed to pierce the soul. Their claws scraped against broken stone, and their voices sounded like grinding metal. Cale's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to survive, to leave the Empress behind, to save himself. But there was something in him, a spark he could not ignore. She had trusted him, had believed in the human capacity to stand firm when others could not. The Empress's warriors had abandoned her, yet he would not. Something deep within his chest surged, filling him with warmth and strength, pride, courage, defiance. He drew his plasma blade, the hum of energy cutting sharply through the deafening chaos. One alien stepped forward, towering over him, its claws scraping the ground with an audible screech. Its eyes glowed like molten metal, hungry and calculating. Cale planted his feet and swung. The blade met the alien's strike with a burst of sparks, and the creature recoiled, surprised by the human's ferocity. From the ruins above, the Empress watched silently, astonishment in her eyes. Humans were underestimated by the galaxy's powers. They were considered fragile, insignificant, incapable of true resilience. Yet here was one human, standing alone, holding the line when even her elite warriors had fled. Hale's arms ached, his muscles screamed with exertion, but he did not falter. His mind became a calm center amidst the storm, calculating every movement, anticipating every attack. Another alien lunged at him, a creature the size of a small vehicle, claws extended. Hale pivoted, sidestepping with agility that belied his human frame, and struck back, piercing its armor with a precise thrust. The creature bellowed, staggering, and the other aliens hesitated, uncertain now. "You think humans are weak," Cale muttered under his breath, his voice nearly lost to the chaos around him. "You will learn today how strong we can be." The first wave of aliens recoiled from his defense, though more were always coming. They had underestimated the human heart, the unpredictable courage that did not bend under fear or odds. Cale realized this. The galaxy had never truly faced humans at their best, never seen the determination that could rise even when hope seemed gone. Cale's eyes flicked to the Empress. She was scanning the battlefield, her sharp mind already forming plans, already calculating escape routes and counterattacks. She might have been the target of the attack, vulnerable and alone, yet she remained a figure of authority, an anchor in the chaos. Humans were rare in her empire, and yet here one stood, offering her protection where none else could. The aliens regrouped, swarming toward him in a coordinated strike. Cale adjusted his stance, feeling every heartbeat, every breath. The first one lunged, claws raised high. He sidestepped, rolling along the cracked stone, and thrust upward with his blade, hitting the alien square in its chest. Sparks flew, metal and flesh torn apart, and the creature fell with a heavy crash. Another came, and then another. Kale fought as though he were a force of nature, swinging, deflecting, countering. Every strike he delivered was precise, every movement calculated, yet it carried the raw unpredictability of human instinct. His energy blade hummed and scorched the air, leaving trails of blue light in its wake. Around him, the plaza became a battlefield of light and shadow, of fire and steel. Even in the chaos, Kale noticed small things. The way a stone hung precariously over the bridge, the angle of the sun reflecting off the alien armor, the rhythm of the enemy's advance. He adapted quickly, his mind a weapon as sharp as the blade in his hands. Every alien that fell made room for him to protect the Empress. Every movement a declaration that humans could stand where others faltered. The Empress's lips curved into a small, incredulous smile. "So, this is why humans endure," she whispered, her voice almost lost among the roaring blasts and the screams of battle. "They are unpredictable, relentless, unbreakable." Kale saw her watching, and it gave him strength. He did not fight for glory or recognition. He fought because it was right. Because she needed him. Because humanity had a stubborn refusal to yield. A fire that burned brighter under pressure. Then came a new threat. A war machine. Massive. Taller than the tallest tower, its cannons glowing a deadly red. Its engines shook the ground with a vibration that rattled Kale's bones. The aliens it commanded moved with it, organized and relentless. Kale's stomach tightened, but he did not waver. He squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of history, of countless human generations who had faced impossible odds and refused to break. He dashed toward a fallen archway, using the debris as cover, and launched a counterattack. His blade swung in arcs of light, cutting down the first line of alien soldiers. Sparks flew against his armor, and small cuts and burns marred his skin, but each wound only made him more determined. Fear had no place here. Survival mattered, but courage mattered more. The Empress, seeing his strategy, began to move as well. She did not flee, nor did she simply stay. She directed what few warriors remained, coordinating attacks and setting traps for the alien invaders. Kyle noticed her subtle signals, small gestures of command, and adjusted his movements accordingly. Together, human and ruler, they formed a bulwark against the enemy, a living testament to what courage and intelligence could achieve. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time felt suspended in the firestorm. Kale's muscles burned, his lungs ached, yet he did not falter. The aliens learned quickly, their tactics becoming more complex, but Kale adapted. He discovered gaps, exploited weaknesses, and even turned the terrain itself into an ally. A falling pillar crushed a group of attackers. A loose cable electrified another. His mind raced as fast as his blade, and for a moment, the tide seemed to turn. Around him, the Empress moved with grace and precision. She was no helpless figure, and Kale was careful to protect her without overshadowing her authority. Every alien that advanced found themselves facing not just a soldier, but the combined will of a human and a leader united in purpose. Night fell, and the sky darkened with smoke and alien vessels. Kale stood in the center of the plaza, bruised and battered, but unbroken. His energy blade hummed low, the air around him crackling faintly. The Empress approached, her steps measured but steady. She reached him, her gaze locking onto his. "You have done more than any of my warriors," she said quietly. "You have shown what humans are capable of. You have made a difference." Kale nodded, not out of pride, but out of understanding. Humanity was not just flesh and bone. It was spirit, courage, and the refusal to yield. The galaxy had underestimated them, always, and today they would learn a lesson that would not be forgotten. and as alien forces regrouped in the distance preparing for another assault, Kale knew one truth with absolute certainty. He would stand firm, as long as he could breathe, as long as she needed protection. He was human, and humans, above all else, stood firm. The wind carried the scent of smoke and ozone, the cries of battle echoing across the ruined city. But Kale's resolve did not waver. He looked to the stars visible through the burning sky and swore silently that humanity would endure. They would rise from the ashes, stronger and wiser, and nothing, not alien might, not overwhelming odds, could break the human spirit. And so, in the heart of chaos, in a city on the brink of destruction, a lone human soldier stood tall. Around him, warriors fled, buildings crumbled, and enemies pressed forward relentlessly. But he remained, because he was human, and humans stood firm. The night hung heavy over the ruined city. Fires from collapsed towers painted the streets in orange and red, and the air trembled with distant blasts as alien war machines advanced steadily. Kale had held his ground through hours of relentless assault, but he knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would not tire, and humans, though stubborn, had limits. Yet he refused to move backward. Retreat was for the weak, for those who feared the impossible. And he was neither. The Empress descended from the ruins of the bridge, stepping carefully over the broken stone, her robe stained but still flowing with regal dignity. Her eyes swept across the plaza, and she took in Kale's stance, the way he moved with purpose and precision. Even as fatigue tugged at his body, she did not speak at first, merely observing, weighing him, as though measuring the human capacity she had once underestimated. "You have held the line far longer than I expected," she said finally, her voice calm but carrying authority. "And yet the enemy will return in force. They will not stop until the city is ours." Kale tightened his grip on his plasma blade, the hum resonating in the tense air. "I don't stop," he said simply. "Not for them. Not for anyone." The Empress nodded. She had seen humans in battle before, but none like this one. Kale did not fight for glory, nor did he seek to flee from danger. He fought because it was right, because someone had to stand when all else failed. And now, she realized, someone had to lead as well. She motioned toward the remains of her fallen warriors, scattered across the plaza. "We have no choice but to make a stand here," she said. "You and I, together." Kale's eyes met hers, and in that instant, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They were two forces united by necessity, a human with unmatched courage and an Empress with unmatched strategy. The aliens had believed they faced a disorganized city, a fleeing army, and a powerless ruler. They were wrong. The first of the war machines moved closer, their massive limbs shaking the ground. Kale calculated the distances, the angles of attack, and the debris that could be used as shields. He noticed a fallen archway, its stone foundation still strong enough to support a human's weight. Using it as cover, he began planning the counterattack. Every instinct he had learned in training, every skill honed in combat, came into play. Humans were unpredictable, and Kale intended to prove it. The Empress followed his movements closely. She pointed to a cluster of fallen pillars, directing him to anticipate a blind spot in the alien formation. Kale understood immediately. Humans were not just strong, they were clever. They used what they had, even ruins, to turn weakness into strength. With a deep breath, he dashed from cover, leaping over debris, his blade ready. The nearest war machine swung its massive arm toward him, expecting an easy strike. Kale ducked beneath it, rolling through the rubble and slashed at a smaller alien guarding the machine's flank. Sparks erupted, and the creature let out a screech that echoed across the burning city. The Empress moved with precision, signaling the few remaining loyal warriors to target vulnerable points. Small explosions rang out, as traps they had set earlier were triggered, sending debris and flames onto advancing aliens. Kale's heart surged, not just from fighting, but from seeing humans working together, using brains and courage in tandem. The aliens were relentless. A new wave emerged from the northern streets, their numbers greater than before. Kale's mind raced. He could not hold them all with brute strength alone. He needed strategy, cunning, and timing. Every strike, every block, every movement had to count. He noticed a gap between the war machine and its support units. If he could reach it, he could disable the machine's power source. It would be a risk, possibly fatal. But humans thrived on risk when others would hesitate. Kale sprinted toward the gap, weaving through the aliens, striking with precision. One by one, the defenders fell to his blade, their armor no match for human unpredictability. The war machine turned, sensing the threat, its massive limbs crashing toward him. Kale rolled beneath them, sparks scattering as claws and metal slammed against stone. He reached the core, his blade cutting through cables and conduits with relentless focus. Energy surged and crackled, then the machine convulsed violently. With a thunderous roar, it collapsed, sending dust and debris into the night sky. For a brief moment, the plaza was silent, except for the crackling of fires. Kale breathed heavily, sweat and soot covering him, but his eyes were alive with determination. Humans had stood against overwhelming odds, and had won a victory that even the Empress had not expected. She approached him, her expression unreadable at first, then softened. "You have done the impossible," she said. "You have not only protected me, but have shown our people that resistance is not futile." Kale nodded, though he did not feel victorious. This was only the beginning. The aliens would regroup, and their attack would return with greater force. But he had seen the spark of hope ignite in the hearts of those who remained. Humans were not meant to give up. They adapted, they fought, they endured. The alien forces began to retreat slightly, recalculating their strategy. Kale seized the opportunity to move closer to the Empress. "We need to evacuate," he said, his voice calm despite the exhaustion. "But we need a path that minimizes their advantage." The Empress studied the city's ruins, her sharp mind calculating escape routes, even amidst chaos. "There is a path through the eastern tunnels," she said. "It is dangerous, but it will take us beyond their immediate reach. If we move carefully, we can regroup and strike again." Cal agreed. He led the way, his senses alert, every sound and movement analyzed for threats. The tunnels were dark, the air heavy with smoke, and the walls scarred from past battles. But within the darkness, he felt a strange exhilaration. Humans thrived in adversity, and this was no exception. As they advanced, small pockets of resistance appeared, survivors who had refused to flee, who had hidden in the rubble. Kale rallied them, giving them instructions, guiding them, showing them how humans could fight together even when all seemed lost. They armed themselves with broken weapons, pipes, and anything they could wield. Yet Kale's confidence in them grew. Humans were resourceful, and even in dire situations, they adapted quickly. The aliens pursued, but Kale's strategic mind turned the tunnels into a labyrinth they could not easily navigate. Traps were set, falling rocks, electrified debris, and narrow passages where only a few could move at a time. Each trap slowed the enemy and gave humans the advantage, proving once more that strength alone did not determine victory. Courage, intelligence, and the will to survive mattered just as much. Hours passed, yet Kale did not falter. His body ached, every muscle screaming for rest, but he pressed on. The Empress moved beside him, giving orders, supporting him, and demonstrating that leadership was more than authority. It was shared responsibility. The humans following them began to regain hope. They had seen a human stand firm against overwhelming odds, and now they saw him leading, inspiring, and teaching them that they were capable of more than they had ever imagined. Finally, they reached a section of the tunnel that opened into a hidden courtyard. The moonlight filtered through cracks in the ceiling, illuminating the faces of those who had followed them. Exhausted but alive, they had survived the first wave of destruction. Kyle turned to the Empress. "We need to prepare for the next attack," he said. "They will come again, stronger, smarter, but we will be ready." The Empress nodded, a rare smile touching her lips. "Yes," she said, "and we will fight." Not just to survive, but to show the galaxy that humans are not easily broken. They underestimate our courage at their peril. Hale looked around at the survivors, the few warriors who remained, and the civilians who had found courage through his example. He felt a surge of pride, not for himself, but for what humanity represented. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and unyielding. They could face overwhelming power and still stand. They could rise from rubble and fire and reclaim what was theirs. The first rays of dawn began to pierce the horizon, casting pale light across the courtyard. Kale's eyes met the Empress's once more, but she had been the target of the attack, the symbol of authority, and yet it was a human who had held the line. A human who had refused to bend or flee. Hale sheathed his blade, feeling the exhaustion settle into his bones, but his resolve remained unbroken. Eye-whacking. This was only the beginning of their struggle. The aliens would not give up, and the human spirit would be tested further than ever before. But Kale knew one thing with certainty. Humans could endure. Humans could fight, and humans would protect those who could not protect themselves. As the survivors regrouped and began to strategize, Kale stood at the center, his gaze scanning the horizon. The city was battered, broken, and filled with danger, yet hope glimmered in the hearts of those around him. Humans had stood firm once, and they would stand firm again. In the distance, alien warships could be seen gathering, preparing for the next assault. But Kale did not flinch. He had faced impossible odds and survived. He had protected the Empress and inspired others to do the same. And in that moment, he understood the truth that the galaxy would soon learn. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Brave, clever, and unyielding, humans could rise against any threat, no matter how overwhelming. The night was not yet over, and the battle was far from finished. But Kale's heart was steady. He would face the next wave. He would lead the survivors. And together they would show the galaxy the strength of the human spirit. Because Kale was human, and humans stood firm. The first light of morning spilled over the ruined city, turning the smoke-filled sky into shades of gold and crimson. The distant hum of alien warships echoed across the streets, a constant reminder that the battle was far from over. Kale stood in the courtyard with the Empress and the small band of survivors who had rallied to them, their faces worn with exhaustion but lit with determination. They had survived the first wave, but they could not survive the next by standing still. Hale knew that the only chance of victory was to take the fight to the enemy. The Empress moved beside him, her presence steady and commanding. She had assessed the situation and made a plan, one that would require precision, courage, and trust. She pointed toward the shattered walls of the city, where the aliens had set up temporary command posts. "If we strike there," she said, "we can disrupt their coordination. Without their leaders, their soldiers will be disorganized, and we will have a chance to turn the tide." Kale's eyes narrowed. "It's dangerous," he said, "but it's the only way." The survivors around them listened intently, ready to follow. They had seen Kale fight, had seen the courage and resourcefulness that no training could teach, and they knew that he was a leader worth trusting. Humans had always survived by adapting, by rising to challenges that seemed impossible. And now they would prove it once again. Kale led them through the ruins, using the shadows of collapsed towers and broken walls as cover. The air was tense, every movement calculated, every sound analyzed for signs of enemy patrols. The aliens had regrouped, but Kale noticed their patterns, subtle weaknesses in their formations. Where others might have panicked, he saw opportunity. Humans were not just strong, they were clever, adaptable, and fearless when they needed to be. As they approached the first alien command post, KL signaled for silence. The survivors crouched low, weapons ready, and the Empress observed with keen eyes. They waited, counting the movements of the alien guards. Timing was everything. One wrong step could alert the entire garrison, but Kale had studied their patterns, and he trusted his instincts. When the moment came, they moved. Kale struck first, using his plasma blade to silently disable the nearest guard. Sparks flared briefly, and the alien fell without a sound. One by one, the rest of the survivors followed, taking down the sentries with precision and speed. The command post was theirs before the alarm could be raised. Inside, they found the alien officers coordinating their forces, unaware that humans had already breached their defenses. Kale moved swiftly, destroying communication devices and sabotaging their plans. Every action was deliberate, designed to create confusion and give humans the advantage. The aliens would not understand until it was too late that a human had outsmarted them. The Empress watched Kale with admiration. He was not just a soldier. He was a strategist, a symbol of what humans could achieve when they refused to yield. "This is what I feared," she said quietly. "A human who does not stop, who does not falter. They are unpredictable, then unstoppable." KL did not respond. His focus was total, his mind sharp and clear. The aliens would regroup, but for now, chaos reigned among their ranks. The survivors moved with confidence, their courage bolstered by Kale's example. Humans had survived disasters before, and now they were proving once again that nothing could break their spirit. From the command post, Kale spotted the next objective, a supply depot where the aliens stored weapons and reinforcements. Without those supplies, the alien forces would be forced to slow their attack, giving humans more time to prepare and strike. He signaled to the Empress, who nodded. Together, they led the survivors toward the depot, moving swiftly through the ruins. The journey was perilous. Alien patrols were everywhere, and the city itself was a maze of rubble and fire. Kale's knowledge of human endurance and adaptability guided them. He taught the survivors how to use the environment to their advantage, tripping alarms to draw enemies away, using debris as cover, and turning narrow alleys into traps. Humans had always survived by thinking, by finding solutions where none seemed possible, and Kale was proving it once again. When they reached the depot, Kale paused. The building was heavily guarded, and a frontal assault would be suicidal. But he did not flinch. Humans thrived in impossible situations, and he had a plan. He signaled for the survivors to create diversions, using fire and noise to draw the guards out. Then, he and a small team would slip inside and sabotage the supplies. The plan unfolded perfectly. The guards, distracted by the chaos outside, failed to notice Kale and his team slipping through a side entrance. Inside, they found crates of alien weaponry, energy packs, and communication devices. Kale worked quickly, planting charges and setting traps. Every second counted, and he moved with precision and purpose. When the charges detonated, the building shook violently. Explosions echoed through the streets, sending debris flying and disorienting the alien forces. Outside, the survivors fought fiercely, taking advantage of the confusion to strike down the disorganized aliens. The tide of battle shifted, if only slightly, but it was enough. Humans were proving that even when outnumbered and outgunned, they could create victory through courage and ingenuity. The Empress moved beside Kale as the explosions subsided. She had never seen anything like this. An unarmed, underestimated human leading an assault that turned the enemy's strength against them. "You have changed the course of this battle," she said. "The galaxy will remember this day." Kale's eyes scanned the horizon. The aliens would not give up, and he knew the next wave would be stronger. But he also knew that humans did not rely on luck or hope alone. They relied on determination, adaptability, and the refusal to surrender. Every survivor following him was now part of something greater, a living testament to the human spirit. As the sun rose higher, casting light over the ruins, Hale prepared for the next move. The city was still dangerous, still under threat, but momentum was shifting. Humans had taken the fight to the enemy, and for the first time, the aliens hesitated. They were powerful, yes, but they had never faced a human who would not yield. Kao led the survivors through the city streets, moving from one target to another, disrupting supply lines and creating chaos in the alien ranks. Each strike was calculated, designed to weaken the enemy and inspire the humans following him. They fought not just to survive, but to prove that human courage and intelligence could overcome even the most formidable foes. By midday, the city was alive with the sound of battle. Aliens moved cautiously, unsure of where the humans would strike next. Kale's presence was everywhere, a shadow of determination and skill. The survivors followed his lead, their confidence growing with every success. They had learned that fear could be overcome, that humans could endure more than any alien enemy expected. The Empress stayed close, her mind racing with strategy. She had underestimated humans before, but Kale had proven her wrong. Humans were more than flesh and bone. They were spirit, will, and courage. They could inspire, lead, and fight with an intensity that could turn the tide of any war. She had placed her trust in Kale, and he had not failed. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the city, Kale paused atop a ruined tower, surveying the battlefield. He saw the alien forces regrouping in the distance, preparing for a counterattack. But he also saw the humans, who had survived because of him. They were tired, battered, and scarred, but their eyes held determination. They would fight again. They would endure. Kale turned to the Empress. "We need to prepare for their counterattack," he said. "They will come at us stronger, but we can use their overconfidence against them." The Empress nodded, her expression resolute. "Yes, and we will show them that humans are not so easily defeated. We will fight not just to survive, but to demonstrate the strength of our spirit." Kale looked around at the survivors, their faces set with determination. They had seen what one human could do, had felt the courage that refused to yield. Now, they were ready to follow him into the next battle, ready to fight, to endure, and to protect the Empress. The first wave of the alien counterattack began as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Massive war machines advanced, supported by troops armed with weapons far more powerful than any human had faced. But Kale did not flinch. He moved with the Empress through the ruins, directing the survivors, creating traps, and setting ambushes. Every action was designed to exploit the enemy's weaknesses, and every strike reminded them that humans were unpredictable, relentless, and courageous. As night fell, the city became a labyrinth of fire, smoke, and battle. Hale and the survivors held the line, striking from shadows, disappearing before the aliens could respond. The Empress coordinated defenses, guiding the humans, and together they turned the tide once more. The alien forces faltered, their numbers unable to overcome the ingenuity, courage, and determination of the humans they had underestimated. By midnight, the city had been secured, at least temporarily. The survivors gathered in the courtyard once more, battered but alive. Kale sheathed his blade, exhaustion weighing on his body, yet his eyes burned with determination. The Empress approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done what no one else could," she said. "You have turned defeat into hope and inspired all of us. Humans are extraordinary, Kale. You have proven it." Hale nodded, though he said nothing. Words were unnecessary. The humans around him had seen the truth in action. Courage, intelligence, and perseverance could overcome even the greatest odds. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and now they had learned that humans would not break, would not yield, and would fight with everything they had to protect those who could not protect themselves. As the survivors tended to the wounded and prepared for the next battle, Cale stood in the center of the courtyard, gazing at the stars beginning to emerge in the night sky. He knew the war was far from over, but he also knew one thing: humans would endure. They would fight. They would rise. Because Cale was human, and humans stood firm.